the biggest appeal to Vegas is the nightlife and the pool parties. And I don't really know exactly what that's like or is going to be like moving into next year, moving forward with COVID.
Yeah.
And to tie it back to like New York, we're both native New Yorkers. We grew up here. It's been pretty sad seeing some of like the just the living conditions and mom and pop shops. Like my family, we have a coffee truck in the city. I made my first big boy investment in a food truck with my dad, and I haven't even been able to bring it out
Yeah.
yet. And it's just because there's no one. So a lot of my customers are office people,
Yeah.
and there's no one in offices now. So what kind of how you feel about living in New York nowadays? Is it a do you feel like it's a ghost town?
No, I
No, because I
don't.
don't
I don't
either.
think New York will ever be a ghost town,
I agree with that.
ever. I mean, even when you hear stories about people fleeing the city, there's still 8 million people
And I,
here.
I don't think that's actual New Yorkers. It's a
People
very
going back to like their hometowns, let's
exactly,
say.
yeah.
Or people who are New Yorkers and living in the city and they just want a bigger space and they're fed up with the city and they want to move out. I mean, there are people who are moving out like that too. But as far as like New York being a ghost town or New York being dead, like I don't think that. I think, and this is me being an optimist and being very positive, but I think when we do get over this, whenever that is, we're going to see a comeback to the city like we've never seen before.
Hmm.
Kind of, I was reading an article actually in the New York Post. They had interviewed a professor from Yale who was saying how it's going to be equivalent to like the Roaring Twenties, where people just like went crazy.
Ironically enough, it's the 20s now also. As
So,
we
yeah, I didn't even put two and two together. You're right. But that's what I think. And I think New York's always going to be a place that appeals to people. It's a place where you can come and do anything you want and be anyone you want and reinvent yourself, invent yourself, like network and, you know,
Well, that was the biggest appeal to New York because people will come into New York and I think the term is called transplant city, right? Or what's
it's when you're a transplant. Yeah,
transplant?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a city where you're right. There's always going to be the appeal to it, and a lot of creative people come here, and it's a go-getter town, right? It's a hustler's town, and I mean the hustlers like in the most positive way. Like I like to say that I'm a hustler with all
Yeah.
the stuff that I do, but I couldn't agree with you more about New York. And for those that are listening now, it's, like my business personally is down like 70% of what it used to be, and it's because there's no one around in the city. And you see boarded up windows on businesses or for rent signs and whatnot. But I think the biggest appeal to Manhattan and to the five boroughs has always been that you would put up with the bullshit of living in a one bedroom studio paying $1,000 a month, which might be a gift now if that was the case. But you do that because you're like, yo, you know what? F it, man. I'm down the block from all these bars and there's a nightlife and the train is there and I could be in Manhattan Midtown in 8 minutes because of my train.
Yeah.
Where now you don't have that. So that's where I think the big issue is between how
And
people
that's
feel
why
about it.
yes, and that's where I think people do have moved away because of that. Because let's say you're living in a studio apartment and you're paying, let's say it's $1,800 rent, or $2,000 because you're in, Midtown or wherever you are, where the rent is high. You're paying that exactly like you said because of your accessibility to everything, to cultural institutions, to other people, to just all of New York has to offer. And now without that, what's the point of paying all this money for an apartment where you're not able to utilize what's around you? Where you can move to another state, pay half that rent or pay a portion of it and
Have
have a
a
bigger
house.
space, have a
Yeah.
house, or use that and have a mortgage and you're basically paying off a house, let's say. I mean, there are so many things you can, talk about when it comes to why people are leaving New York. But personally, as a native New Yorker, I could never live anywhere else.
Really?
I've considered it for work, mostly just for work. But I don't think I could ever live anywhere else.
Wow.
Yeah.
They say about 70% of people never leave their home state.
Yeah.
And I think it's very true. I show so much love to people that I had a friend of mine. She lives in Miami now. I went to high school with her, and she they just had a, I think it's the Miami Herald. I saw she posted
Mm-hmm.
the article, but she got recognized as like one of the top real estate agents down there, and
Wow.
she's 27, I think. She just woke up one morning. She's like, "Dude, fuck snow. I'm not shoveling."
Yeah.
And she just got up and left and went down to Miami. Miami's probably my favorite city.
Yeah, I love Miami.
Miami's amazing. I mean, just if you think I like Vegas, Miami's probably my
Yeah.
favorite.
I mean,
And
maybe I would move to go somewhere warmer
well, that's the thing.
eventually.
Like for us, it's always cold. You know,
Yeah.
the winters are pretty harsh
But that
here.
would be the only like maybe reason I would leave.
Yeah, I
Unless
would.
my family also was like, we're getting out of here.
Right. Yeah,
Which
that
is
makes
also
sense
another
there.
thing that ties me to New York.
Right. Yeah, your family's here, and also
Mm-hmm.
there's your infrastructure. Like you're familiar with your people. It's not
Yeah.
a. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing that people stay in their home state. I mean, I haven't gone anywhere. Even when I went to college, I went to Buffalo, so
Yeah.
I'm still in New York. But I think I personally, so I always wanted to live somewhere else, but I never, I walked out of my college class and my Greek professor was like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I'm out." She's like, "To where?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just not coming back." And I went straight to the dean's office and I just withdrew my semester and
Yeah.
that was it. And I never knew until I stumbled into this thing that I can make money to survive to live anywhere else, because like I can't go to a job unless it's a labor job, like I could be a plumber or some shit, go and learn a skill of some kind of trade, I should
Yeah.
say. But everywhere else it's like you need to have your degree, you need to be educated, you need to go to school unless you create something like this. So I feel really different where I would love to live somewhere else even before this. Like I'm not one of
Yeah.
those like, oh my god, all dramatic and shit. Like nah, man, New York is where it's at. I mean, I got this thing done because he's one of my favorite rappers,
Mm-hmm.
and the Trade Center is there also. So it's like I'm always gonna be a New Yorker, and I moved back into the city when people were moving out of it. I kind of doubled down on everything that I'm doing with this, but that's how I feel about like living in New York.
I mean, I guess it could be cool to live somewhere else. I studied abroad, so I feel like I got a little bit of a
Oh,
taste.
where at?
I studied in Australia and in Italy.
Oh,
So
I got a wild audience in Australia. Like a lot of
Really?
when you upload the podcast and you see like the different spots, a lot of Aussies.
Yeah, I was in I was in my school is on Manly Beach or in Manly Beach. Amazing. It was beautiful. I went for a winter semester, so it was summertime there while it was
Damn, you
freezing
planned that
cold.
shit out. Whoa.
It was amazing. I was there for New Year's. It was really, really nice. It's a beautiful city. And like my school, like I had a view of the beach from my window.
What's it like studying abroad?
So the first time when I was in Italy, I went completely by myself. And, it's a learning.
Not knowing anyone.
I didn't know anyone. I didn't
Okay.
even go through. I went through another school that accepted my credits from my school. So like I literally knew no one. I just hopped on the plane and was like, I guess I'll meet friends there.
Did you have like a midlife crisis at 20 or was,
It was always something that I wanted to do, and I was like, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? I wasn't nervous to go by myself. The first like 2 days, I was kind of like, I miss my family. I'm all by myself. I don't know anyone. Like I don't speak the language. Like I'm unfamiliar with everything. But by the time like my semester was up, I was like, I wish I could extend it. I want to like live here a little bit longer. I loved it so much.
where in Italy?
In Rome. And you get used to, I mean, you get used to your circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can acclimate yourself in a new environment, in a new place. You just have to have a positive mindset and you need to be accepting of what's going on. So like, had I gone there and was like, I hate this, I miss my family, I'm lonely,
Yeah, you were
I
gonna
don't
be
want to make
miserable.
friends. Like, it's all about mindset. So I was like, you know what, I'm here. Like, this is an amazing opportunity. Let me go explore. Whether I meet a friend today or in 2 weeks from now, like, I'm going to make the best of it. And I ended up meeting a bunch of friends. We ended up traveling together to other places. We went to Barcelona for like 5 days. I went down to the Amalfi Coast. I traveled within Italy. It was just really, really amazing. And it was a great, like I felt like I personally grew too. Because it's hard traveling by yourself. It's hard being alone, like especially in a foreign country where you don't know the language and you don't know anyone. So all of that was just kind of new for me, and I feel like it made me more independent. And I don't know, it's a experience that I look back upon. I'm like one of the best things I ever done for myself.
How was that being in a country where you didn't know the language? Because I went to Cancun for spring break, completely different circumstances, right? Like you went there for an education and to learn stuff, and for school, I went there to be an asshole and to party. But none of my friends, I went with all Greek kids, so no one knew how to speak Spanish. And we
Well,
went.
I feel like when you go to like a resort, people speak English.
There was no issues of not seeing people that spoke English.
Yeah.
But it was weird when, the cops came to our room because it was a situation on our floor. They were looking for someone. And they have like machine guns and shit.
God.
And, it's 4 a.m.
What
You're like,
happened in
what
your
the
hotel?
fuck is going on?
Oh my God.
And then one of my friends, Manny, he's Portuguese. So he was our translator. But then, it's a very different Portuguese and Spanish. So it was like super awkward in certain situations, like when you would leave the resort or if you went to an actual Mexican restaurant that wasn't on the resort. So what was that like, not knowing the language? Did you get acclimated quickly?
I feel like I did, just because I speak Greek, which it's much different than Italian. I also know like a little bit of Spanish too, so I was able to pick up on certain things. I also made it a point to like research words, like, basic words.
Yeah.
Like hi, bye, like where is this? What is this? How much is this? So things like that. So I was like practicing all of that. And then you just start to pick up like at school, like some of my professors were very like adamant about like having us like learn certain things or about the language. So I feel like, I mean, it's hard to learn a language, I feel like, when you're older, because it's hard to pick up a language. But I feel like I acclimated pretty well. I mean, I don't speak a lick of Italian. I know like maybe one phrase, like dove si trova, which is like, I think, where is this? Or I might even be saying it wrong, but like that's one thing, because I kept saying like, where is that? Or like, where am I? I don't remember. I should probably Google Translate it, but that's like one of the things I remember because I would say it over and over again just to figure out where I was going. But the only like disadvantage to that is like if you say something and then they start speaking to you as if you're fluent, and I'm like, I have no idea. I got lost so many times, and I think about it now, like I'm 5'2", I'm a female, like where am I going at night by myself in Italy on roads that I don't know? Like I would never tell my parents this. I would be like, oh yeah, I'm safe, everything's fine. I never felt unsafe, but there were definitely some sketchy situations where, because I didn't know anyone, because I was alone, because I ended up taking a wrong turn, not understanding like the directions that someone told me, that I ended up like walking down like random alleyways trying to find my way home at 11 o'clock at night, or at not even 11 o'clock at night, maybe like 9 o'clock at night after a night class or something like that. And I don't know, I think back, I'm like, I definitely have like a guardian angel, or maybe who knows? I don't know. It was like, so things like that got a little.
So I'm baffled to hear that, because that's never a concern for me, like being a guy.
Yeah.
And I didn't have this moment, Val, until recently, about like, let's say maybe a month ago. My friends and I went to this girl's apartment in the city because she had just moved. She was like a childhood friend and she just moved. And I was in the kitchen making drinks and everyone was like in the living room and someone knocked on the door. And I just went and answered, in an apartment building. I just went and answered it. Didn't say like, yo, who is it?
Yeah.
And she like came into the kitchen. She's like, who was that? I was like, oh, some dude knocked on the wrong door. She's like, you didn't ask who it was before you opened?
Yeah.
I was like, no. She's like, I would never do that. I was like, what? Answer the door? She's like, bro, yeah, I would never answer the door with not knowing who it was. And then she's like, that's a luxury of being a dude. Like,
yeah. There are a lot of things that
Yeah,
Yeah.
the things are endless, but that was just from you saying how
Yeah.
you were worried about, like, you know, like even us when we went to Cancun, that was around the time when like the drug war was really happening. I remember it was at least the national media was covering it more, and literally the weekend before I went, this was spring break 2010. I think like mid-March. It was my birthday gift, so it was my 19. It was my 19th birthday. 19, yeah, 2010. Yeah, 19. So there was a kid from Rutgers that got beat by militia
Oh my God.
and put into a coma. And my mom's reading this and watching the news right before
Probably
me
bugging
leaving.
out.
She's like, "Well, you're not going." I was like, "Well, we just paid for this. Like, I'm going." And then the same thing. I'm like, "Yo, you know, we haven't left the resort all the time." Really
Yeah.
stupid. Hindsight 2020. But again, it was never a worry for my friends and I. You know, like it's just
And then I guess the point you can say is like, well, why travel alone as a female? But it's like I was going with the school, but you also don't. You never anticipate a situation like that. As a woman, you never want to be in a situation where like you feel threatened or like you feel like something bad can happen, like walking by yourself at night, which I could leave your house right now. I'm going to leave your apartment and walk back to my apartment. But even then, it's like, even though there's so many people around, it's still like, I need to be aware of like my surroundings. And maybe that's me being a New Yorker too, but it's also like, I'm a woman and guys are threatening. Not all guys.
no.
But like,
I know that like
it's
yeah.
something that like
It's a
from a little
concern.
girl, I've been told like,
Right.
always be aware of your surroundings. Like, you know, you never know who's going to, like, what crazy person is around. Like, just things that we're told that we need to be aware of.
Nah, for sure. I feel you. I was in Miami one time and I was just waiting on the corner for my food to get done. And these two girls just came up to me and were like, "Hey, can we just stand next to you for a couple?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm just waiting to get food. And I guess like guys were following them.
It's
And
scary.
then as they left, she's like, "Thank you so much for not wanting anything out of this." I was like, "I'm pretty fucked up right now and I just want to eat. So I'm not gonna stay here any longer. So hopefully like
Yeah.
everything is good." But it's such a weird it's a weird thing, man.
Yeah.
Did you also went to Australia? Which of the two would you, if someone's listening to this now and they want to go study abroad, which one would you?
I mean, two different like
Nah, you gotta pick one.
countries.
No, there's no
Two different. Well, let me just say. So Italy, I went by myself.
Okay.
I was 18 years old, 19 years old. I think I was 19.
Wait, so you went like right off the bat when you went to college? Like, isn't that something you do as a junior or senior? Again, I've never studied abroad, so I have no idea what the process is like.
When did I go? 2013. I think I went end of my sophomore year. Yeah, so end of my sophomore year to Italy, or my last semester of my sophomore year, and then Australia. I took a winter semester. So that following fall semester. So after that following fall semester, I went to Australia. So it was really like I was in Italy, I came back home, and then I went to Australia. Mm-hmm. And with Australia, I went with two of my really close friends. So that was a whole different experience. Like that was
because you had company that you knew and you were familiar.
Two close friends too.
Gotcha.
So like we had the best time ever. It's also different when you're with two people because like you always have someone,
Right.
even with one person, you have someone to go and do things with all
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really depends. The food in Italy obviously is.
Oh, it gotta be.
I mean,
number one
oh
on
my
the Mount
God.
Rushmore.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Like-
I can imagine.
So if you want food, if you're a foodie, I would say Italy. Also culture-wise too, Australia is beautiful. But like if you're interested in like history and things like that, I would say Italy as well. But Australia also has amazing, beautiful beaches, culture, their city. I mean, Sydney is amazing. So I guess it depends what you're looking for. But what appealed me about Australia was that it's on the other side of the world. And I'm like, am I going to go back to Australia? I mean, I would love to go back. I do plan on going back. But at the time, I'm like, when else am I going to go?
It makes sense because
this is an ideal opportunity.
Yeah, and you being Greek, it just seems like Italy would be somewhere you would more likely.
Surprisingly, there are a lot of Greeks in Australia. I actually met
There
up
is,
with.
yeah.
They're not related to me, but they're very close friends with my aunt who lives here in Astoria. And when I was down there, I met up with them. And they're from
That's
the
dope.
same like small Greek village that my mom's from in Sparta in Greece. So like talk about like a small world. Like I'm on the other side. I'm traveling from New York to Australia and I'm meeting up with
People that
people
know,
who are
yeah.
who grew up with my aunt. Like crazy, you know?
Yeah,
But there are
that's-
surprisingly a lot of Greeks. Like I heard them speaking it too. And it's also different in Australia because people speak English,
Right.
you know? So it's not like I had to
Learn a new language.
learn a new language. It was much more easier to like assimilate.